Welcome back to the SOTA podcast. This is season 3, episode 3. I'm Mark. I'm here with Selena and Tyler.
Hi.
And today
Hi.
our guest is Abraham Rowe here with us. So
Hello.
why don't you introduce yourself to us, Abraham? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor. I love what you guys are doing. My name is Abraham Rowe. I am a professional freelance photographer here in Florence, Alabama. I've been working in the field pretty much since I left UNA for it's about 20 years now. We do commercial work, editorial projects, weddings, portraits, food photography, all kinds of different stuff. So keeps us busy.
Nice.
So you graduated from UNA, and I was just wondering, what are some obstacles that you may have faced breaking into the photography industry?
Yes, I actually graduated from Auburn in 2000 and was studying business at the time. And about a year before I graduated, I took an art class and fell in love very quickly. And through that, I discovered photography and started taking photography classes at Auburn my last year there. And I knew I had to go back. I didn't have enough. So I had to come to UNA to study photography at that point. So I went to UNA for about 2.5 years and did work for the Florala and the diorama under Shannon Wells, and took art. It was complete immersion because I was doing art classes and working for the newspaper. So I was completely immersed. It was 24/7 art and photography, which was amazing. But then I went out on my own a little after 2000. And I had a lot of obstacles. The main one was everything I studied was film, or right about that time, everything was going digital. So I kind of had to acquire all that information and knowledge on my own and learn that, which was fine. But it was kind of strange to study one thing and end up working in it, using a different medium almost.
So are you originally from Florence, or where are you originally from?
Yeah, I'm from Huntsville.
Oh, okay. So how did you find UNA?
Well, there weren't many schools at the time that offered a degree in photography. I believe it was Montevallo, Alabama, and UNA at the time. And I wasn't going to go to Alabama. And I had an opportunity for the scholarship through the publications. And that's really what did it. It's nice to have your school paid for. And I felt at home in Florence and at UNA almost immediately. I haven't left, so I love it. I love it here.
Well, that's amazing. I'm sorry, my bad. But
No, go ahead.
That's really good that you say that, because a lot of people that we've interviewed in the past, they say that, and we would agree too, that it just feels like you're at home when you're at UNA. So it's good that you said that. And since you've been to two different universities like Auburn and UNA, so since you're a professional photographer, do you have any tips for any graduating seniors or any people who aspire to be photographers in the future?
Yes, that is a great question. And, it really depends on what field you want to go into. There's a lot of different types of photography, obviously. I never left Florence. I love it here, and we have a lot of work here, so we do our thing here in Florence. But the first thing is there aren't a lot of jobs in photography. Most people who do photography for a living are working for themselves. So you got to have the hustle. The hustle's real, and you got to be able to bring it in that department. If you want to do commercial photography, if you wanted to, let's say, go to the top of the industry in commercial photography, I don't know if this is good advice, but this is what I would say, is move to a big city and work for another photographer, work for a studio, because you're going to see the production quality of people doing doing amazing things at the top of the field, and you're going to make a lot of great connections. So I'd say move to New York and find somebody to assist for, or something like that. Just do it. We've had UNA graduates kind of follow that path. Jake Jones, he's working for Nike and all kinds of huge commercial jobs, and he assisted for a couple of years. And so I think that's a great way to do it if you want to be in commercial.
Okay, that's really cool that he was able to go and work for Nike. That's phenomenal. But
yeah, he's a freelancer, but he gets gigs with them all the time. He'll be down in New Zealand doing an ad campaign.
My gosh, what a lucky guy being able to photograph for Nike. Jeez. So
like that, he gets like free travel, right?
I suppose so.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But
lots of people from UNA doing really cool stuff.
Oh yeah, and that's definitely one of the coolest things that we've heard about here on SOTA Pop. But that's great. So you said you haven't left Florence since you've come here. So what are some like recent projects that you've been doing around the area?
Well, I've been spending a lot of my time lately working on the Hidden Spaces project, which I don't know, we're going to be doing that exhibit at the UNA Art Gallery downtown. We may get into that a little bit more. That's what's been taking the majority of my time in the last few months. Some other things that I've been working on, I did a little quarantine project with my son, who is 16. He's in high school at Florence High. When they got sent home from school, I thought, we got to have something to do. We're going to be together for who knows how long. So I had this little idea, and we just did it real quick. It was, ended up with 15 images, but we were inspired and we really liked the direction of the project. We did 3 shots in one day, and we went back and ended up doing about 15. And so that was a little fun project to kind of talk about how we were feeling about during quarantine. And I think it's important for me, at least, to do projects. Not really many people have seen it, but it's important to keep you sharp and to test new ideas and things like that. So I'm not getting anything out of it, but I think it's almost like professional development. If you don't move on ideas, they go away. And if you move on ideas, you get more ideas. So you gotta just do it.
And you said that it was kind of a way that you thought that you can show your feelings. So as a photographer, how do you find in different, how do I word this? How do you see how different photographers express different types of emotions through their pieces? I've always wondered that.
Yeah, some artists are trying to express an emotion or an idea or a feeling, and some people are trying to do that for other people. A lot of my photography is really maybe trying to show other people's life, not my internal life, but maybe trying to speak about other people, like more documentary style stuff. So I don't know, with that project we were talking about, in particular, the quarantine project, it was right when it was all going down. It was like early March, and I kind of just played it out in my head. I was like, what would this be like? Like, what's the worst case scenario? It was almost like an apocalyptic thing. Like, what happens if this plays out and the whole world is, struck with this horrible disease? What would it look like? So my son was kind of he played the character he was like the protagonist. So he was in this isolated world. We were all kind of isolated that first little bit. And so we kind of rolled with that. It was like, what would it feel like to be isolated outside of our house? So he was going around kind of like looking for other life and things like that. So I thought it was fun. And when it's that dramatic, worldwide pandemic kind of situation, it's easy to pull on those like big feelings. It's easy to see it,
Yeah, and I mean that sounds like fun. It kind of gives me a little bit like Walking Dead type vibes,
A
which is
little
pretty.
bit, yeah.
It's a really
We,
cool. Go ahead.
yeah, we just had a good time with it, and it was fun to do a project with my kid.
Yeah. Another thing I kind of wanna hear about. Can you tell us a little bit about the casual gathering of artists?
I'm probably not the best person to ask about the casual gathering of artists, so it actually does have a lot of UNA tie-ins, though. It was originally started by Robert, Professor Rausch, one of the photography professors. He's incredible. I love Mr. Rausch. He started it. It was originally at his studio maybe a decade ago, and it's kind of in its second incarnation. And Wayne Sides, also another former UNA photography professor, kind of heads it up or organizes it. But really what it is just, I think it's monthly or bi-monthly chance to kind of get together with other artists from the area. Sometimes there's exhibits, sometimes it's music-based or spoken word. It kind of has a different focus and different locations, usually at different artistic places. Like we did it at our studio. They've done it at the Kennedy Douglas Center downtown. I believe there's been one at y'all's gallery as well. So it kind of bounces around and just, get to rub shoulders with other artists and brainstorm and just hang out, see some weird stuff. It's great.
So I know being from this area, you have like a little history with 7 Points, and I was wondering like how connected you are and like if anything influences your style or your editing, because I know you said you're telling other people's stories, but you're still like putting your mark on it. Like you have your own little, if there's like a trademark that you do with your photography or anything like that.
As far as like an editing style, not really. I kind of like to keep it kind of grounded in the film world, kind of that color palette of traditional film photography. But as far as 7 Points, our studio's in 7 Points. We've been in our building. It's on Cypress Mill Road. We've been here maybe 7 years. And I love 7 Points. I think it's a really interesting part of town. There's a convergence of a lot of different walks of life here. There's wealthy people, nice businesses, a lot of people who are just walking down the street, walking around, that I don't know what their story is. So I love 7 Points. We started the 7 Points art crawl maybe 6 years ago with another artist that was here at the time, Emily Thompson and David Austin, and Andrew Sutherland, who's another former UNA graduate. We wanted to do something cool to bring people to 7 Points, and we decided just to open up our spaces and put some art on the walls. And that's probably the most fun thing that we do in 7 Points. So once a year, we do that in the fall typically, and people just get to come, hang out, drink some wine, look at some art, talk about things. We always have street food. There's always pop-up shops, and sometimes there's live art. We try to just make it as fun and different as we can. And we only do it once a year, so we try to make it special. But, go ahead.
This year, because of the pandemic and everything, fall's around the corner already.
Yeah.
So were you planning on maybe like doing like a live stream or anything like that through social media?
Well, I was having a conversation with Chris James about that. He's with Heavy Color. He's a fantastic designer, screen printer. We talked about that. We're kind of kicking around some ideas. We may just take a break this year. We may try to do something online, streaming, Facebook Live. I don't know. We have only had a couple conversations, so I really don't know what we're doing. We might just take a year off and hit it hard next year.
Yeah.
Well, what is Folks of Florence, and what was your inspiration behind it?
Okay.
Sorry about that.
How?
No. I would love to talk about that. I started that project about 6 years. It's been almost 7 years ago now. And, I did not put my name on that project, and it still does not have my name attached to it. And so I don't know how people find out that I do that, but I do. It's a lot of my friends didn't know for years that it was me, which was kind of fun. When I started, I was like, I want this to be anonymous. I don't want anybody to know who it is. I'm just going to do it. But it really tied into where we are in 7 Points as well, because when we moved into the studio, I'd be sitting here editing. The front of the studio has a lot of windows. So I started seeing the same people walking by every day, sometimes like 4 or 5 times. I'm like, who are these people? What are they doing? Why are they walking by every day? What's their story, So that was really the starting point for Folks of Florence. And essentially what it is documenting the history of everyday life of Florence, Alabama. And so there's a photograph, and I usually try to interview people and just kind of ask them what their story is, more because I'm curious. It started as me being curious, like, what are these people doing? Why are they walking around? Why do I see them every single day? So it is really me getting to scratch my itch for being nosy and getting to scratch my itch to be a journalist. When I was at UNA, I worked for the Florala, and people may scoff at the Florala, but for a student, it's important. You learn a lot just walking into situations that you know nothing about and trying to delineate the information, take truthful photographs, find the story. You may not know the story when you walk into it. So I loved that. I loved journalism, and I don't get to do that on a daily basis as a freelance photographer. And Folks of Florence kind of allowed me to do that, to scratch that journalism itch. And the it's a little voyeuristic too. I get to ask people all kinds of questions about their life and be nosy, but I love that project, and I don't always get to give as much time to it as I would like, but it's online at Folks of Florence on Facebook. It's a social media project, and on Instagram at Folks of Florence. But I'll say one more thing about it. It's kind of the common thread through a lot of my personal work is documenting and really telling the story of the history of everyday life of common people. It's kind of my response to American culture. I think a lot of American culture there's the celebrity culture of America, and I don't think that tells the full story of America. So it's my way in this tiny little corner of Northwest Alabama to tell the story of everyday people doing everyday things as kind of a counterbalance to, I don't know, celebrity culture being overly emphasized in America.
What's like the normal, like what's the average like kind of response or reactions that you get from these people that you see and that you want to be part of this? Because I know, they're, like you said, they're just everyday people. So they're not, really used to people taking their pictures all the time. So like, what is the normal kind of reaction that you get out of these folks?
It's a little scary approaching people, especially certain people or certain situations or certain parts of town or whatever. But it's usually just me with my camera wherever I'm going. And if I see something interesting, I'll try to talk to them. Most people are completely open to it. And once you realize that people want to talk about themselves, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to talk to somebody, ask them about themselves. Almost 100% people will talk to you because people love talking about themselves. People want to tell their story. People will talk to you. If you find them interesting, they will open up to you. And I've had people bare their souls, you know. It's not every time, but it's crazy, man. Go back and read some stuff. It's nuts. Like this one guy was playing saxophone. It was actually on the UNA campus. It was Thanksgiving Day, and we went for a walk after eating our Thanksgiving meal. And we walked down there, and there's this dude playing saxophone by the fountain. And fortunately, I had my camera with me. And so I waited for him to stop playing. I was like, man, I gotta find out what this dude's story is. This is interesting. What's he doing down here? So he had just gotten off of work. He was like a nurse tech at ECM or something like that. And he said that it was his first Thanksgiving without his mom. His mom had just died, and he wasn't able to. His family's in Detroit, and he wasn't able to go home and be with his family. So he was completely by himself on Thanksgiving Day. And he was like, instead of feeling sad, I just wanted to give. That was the best thing I could do, is just give something of myself to kind of push away the sadness of not being able to be with my mom. And so he was giving that gift to other people who were coming to see the Lions, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment. I'll never forget it. And more times than not, it's moments like that. Like it can get intense. People will tell you some crazy shit. And it's all in Florence. There's so many interesting people here. It's crazy.
Can I do a quick aside real quick?
Yeah.
Because I was listening to what you were saying, and I definitely totally agree. For a while, it's been like really hard for me to talk to people, but I work at 7 Points. I work at the McDonald's at 7 Points.
Nice.
And there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of interesting people. There's a lot of people with like these really cool outfits and stuff. So I'll stop and talk to them whenever like I'm on break or something. And my friends think that I'm kind of weird for that. But thank you for putting it out there that it's just people like to talk about themselves. Totally. So I definitely agree with you, and thank you for saying that, because it's
Don't
true.
Be afraid to talk to your neighbors. That's what it's all about. You know what? People have all this crazy shit to share. So you know what? Talk to your neighbors. They'll talk to you. Yeah. Meet your neighbors.
I feel
everybody's
that.
Cool.
Yeah, because I mean, like, because like the person next to you could have like the craziest world story that they've ever had. I mean, they could have parachuted into the freaking ocean and made a jet ski out of wood planks or something, and you never know.
No, dude. Yes. No, I interviewed a World War II vet. Dude was like 90. He was still doing upholstery. He lived maybe 2 blocks from my house. I'd been living there for 5 years, never knew who the guy was. Finally talked to him, and he told me this amazing story about moving back from World War II and starting his shop in the Shoals. He's still there. He's still doing it. I don't know, 70 years later or something. I couldn't believe it. It's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. Yeah. So moving on into kind of the future, I know you have your project that we're putting in our gallery next door. But do you have any other upcoming projects, or is it just that one?
Man, I have spent so much of my energy on that project. I told Dr. Barsk of the Heritage area, I was like, I need a break. I got to take a break. Now I've got a lot of work on the calendar this fall, so I'm just going to be grinding, doing the work, shooting a lot of weddings. We got a bunch of commercial work coming up, a bunch of product photography in the studio. My wife's a florist. She's got a bunch of gigs. We're hustling, man. We're going to be busy. But Folks of Florence will always continue, and we've been working on this West Florence project for the exhibit that's coming up. And I've made so many connections there. And projects like that, man, you can't just do it in a one-time thing. You got to go back and you got to meet people, and then those people introduce you to somebody, and then you got to talk to them, and then you got to schedule something, or you got to be in the right place at the right time. To go down the rabbit hole, it takes time. And so there's a lot of loose ends in West Florence, so I'm probably not going to be able to let it go that easily. There is a motorcycle club in West Florence who also is kind of a nonprofit charitable organization. bunch of cool black dudes on bikes, man. I was like, I got to get to know these guys. And COVID hit, and so it's been a little complicated, but they deliver dry goods to shut-ins in West Florence and other parts of town as well. And I'm trying to hook up with them, and it hasn't happened. It's taken months. So they're having a meeting tomorrow, and I hope I get to go. So the project will continue. So I may yet be doing that. I don't know. We'll see. Do you want to talk about that project?
Yeah,
Yes.
I want to hear about that and the West Florence like aspect of hidden spaces.
Yeah, so I'll do the brief summary of Hidden Spaces for those your listeners who don't know about it. It is very much connected to UNA. Thankfully, they brought me in. It is a collaboration between Dr. Barsk at the Muscle Shoals National Heritage Area, which is a really cool organization, and Dr. Dempsey of the UNA Public History Department. And Dr. Dempsey had this idea, I think it was even before he started at UNA, about doing it. He's really big into like telling the story of history with artists, like a collaboration with artists. And so we formed this kind of group, and we basically find historically relevant spaces in the heritage area, which is the 6 counties of Northwest Alabama, and tell stories, photographs of these hidden spaces. So they were interesting, historically relevant spaces that aren't the most talked about of places in our area. And through that, we get to tell stories and contextualize and, give the history of places and contextualize them with where we are in kind of modern day. And I like to bring the human element in, as I like to do with Folks of Florence. So a lot of these spaces, we do get to tell the stories of people. And one of those, so when we decided to do the exhibit is kind of all the work we've been working on for the last 3 or 4 years on this project. I think it's been 3 years. So it's hidden spaces. We did another side project called Choosing Here, which is people who've moved away from the shoals and then come back, why they came back, tell their stories, and we usually photograph them in relevant, interesting spaces, cool landscapes, things like that. And then I had this idea, and I pitched it to Dr. Barsk and Dr. Dempsey about kind of doing the same take except with people in the music industry in the shoals. As you know, the 3 pillars of the heritage area are Native American, water, and the music. And so I had this idea to do a project with musicians that are not as talked about in the shoals music scene. The same people want to talk about the same people over and over when they're talking about Muscle Shoals music. And it's usually stuff that's happened a long time ago. So what we wanted to do is talk to people throughout the whole spectrum of genre and age, people, young people, older people working in Americana and soul, and people working in hip hop, some young people, and go into their hidden spaces. A lot of times their home, places that are just interesting to them, and kind of talk about the creative process. Because, we can all go see people perform in a performance space, but it's rare that we get to go into an intimate space, where they might be writing their music or coming up with these original melodies or whatever. So a lot of cool people let us come into their homes, and so we got a lot of really great oral histories. That will be part of the exhibit as well. We actually got an Alabama State Arts Council grant to do that project. Thank you, Alabama State Arts Council. Go apply for grants. No one in Northwest Alabama does. We actually have someone from Northwest Alabama who just got on the board of the State Arts Council. And she said, apply, because the only people that do are people from Birmingham and Montgomery. So go apply for grants. You get a lot of money.
One more question. Just before, I know we're getting ready to leave, but I was wondering, would you take on any mentorships or apprenticeships or anything like that?
every once in a while I get an inquiry, and I rarely do. I apologize I should, because I think it's important to be a vessel and things come in and flow through you and come out. I'm always paranoid about what am I going to be able to help somebody with. I'm still working on my process. How am I going to help somebody with their process? So I'm always a little gun shy, but I'm open to it. Email me, DM me. I'm always open to it. So yeah. Are we running out of time?
We have 4 minutes before it just ends. So
all right. Let me get into West Florence real quick, if that's okay.
That's perfectly fine.
Okay, perfect. So because that's the major part of the exhibit. Come see the exhibit. Unfortunately, COVID-19. It's going to be at the gallery. There's not going to be a huge opening or anything. So that's a bummer because gallery openings are the best. But we're going to be doing a video, and you can walk in the gallery during normal gallery hours and check it out. When we decided to do it, we wanted to do hidden spaces. We've done like 15 hidden spaces, and you can see them on the hiddenspaces.org website. But when we were talking about doing the exhibit, I told them, I was like, we need to do one hidden space and do a deep dive. And the one that I wanted to do was West Florence, partially because it's within eyeshot of the UNA gallery. It's part of UNA. It's part of, huge part of Florence. And I've never seen people photograph West Florence. It's kind of in its own world, I've had multiple people tell me, don't go to West Florence unless you have business in West Florence, And I've been hearing these things forever. But, I've been doing Folks of Florence for a long time too, and I know how people are, and so I just wanted to dig in, man. I wanted to get to know people. I wanted to cut through the fear and the tension of what I'd always heard about West Florence. And man, it was a gift. It was like Christmas. I would meet somebody and that would lead to the next person. And it's a fascinating part of town. It's so historically relevant, And unfortunately, it is blatantly obvious the systematic racism that has happened in West Florence as well. It is visible in West Florence. There is the tallest building in Florence is sitting in the middle of Mobile Street, cutting off West Florence from the rest of downtown, and that was not done on accident. There's a bridge that used to go over Cypress Creek in West Florence. What's up with the bridge? Why did the bridge never get rebuilt? Why are these roads getting cut off? It's an island right in the middle of our city. It is truly a hidden space. And there's a lot of cool people with a lot of cool stories to tell. So come to the gallery and check it out.
Yes, check it out. It says we have less than a minute, so definitely check out our social media. Check out his social media. We'll link it and everything, and our posts and everything. Check everything out. Come to the exhibit.
Yeah,
thank you guys for watching, and we'll see y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you for being a part of this, Abraham.
Man, it was a pleasure. You guys are awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, make sure to check out all of our social medias. Feel free to send us your feedback at arts@una.edu or through the DMs of any of our social media. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you in the future.
This podcast has been brought to you by UNA School of the Arts. Executive producer is Mark Gallegos, co-produced by Selena Fugate and Tyler Hankins. Special thanks to Dr. Terrence Brown and the entire SOTA staff.